From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I am Suini Gray. Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro will officially be registered as a candidate for the April 22nd elections on Tuesday. Ahead of that, Maduro won the backing of the Communist Party of Venezuela, which signed with his United Socialist Party. The two parties sealed an agreement to strengthen the development of the Bolivarian Revolution and socialism in the country. The deal with the Communist Party includes measures for alleviating social struggles, the protection of workers, and the evaluation of social, economic, and political actions.
It is the first time in history of the Bolivarian Revolution, in the relationship among political forces, that we have achieved this type of agreement. This is an extraordinary document which is a commitment from all of us to move from the present towards a better future. Our main goal should be sticking together.
President Nicolas Maduro is expected to register his candidacy in the coming hours. Our correspondent Freddie Gillingham is waiting with supporters outside the National Electoral Council.
So we're here in central Caracas with a big mobilization of President Maduro's core support base. We are here outside the CNE, the National Electoral Council, where Maduro is expected to come later today after this large sea of red have partaken in a march. He is expected to fully register as a presidential candidate for April 22nd. It's a stark contrast to yesterday, the first day of registration, where one opposition candidate put himself forward. This plaza that we were in yesterday was completely empty. So today it's clearly demonstrated the mobilized support for the president as he runs for a second term.
Thank you, Freddie, for that report. Ahead of the elections, Venezuela put on a show of its military forces. President Nicolas Maduro presided over the Bolivarian National Armed Forces as they performed drills. He also said cooperation agreements have been put in place with China, Iran, Belarus, Turkey, and soon India. Venezuela will work with these countries to test new weapons technologies to protect Venezuela's peace, stability, and sovereignty. In Colombia, 5 soldiers were killed and 10 wounded in an explosion in the northeast department of Santander. It is believed to be the work of guerrillas of the National Liberation Army. Colombian President Juan Manuel Santos condemned the attack in a statement on Twitter and promised to bring the perpetrators to justice. The National Liberation Army is the last guerrilla force in Colombia. And hours before the army attack, the ALN announced a new ceasefire that will kick in just before the legislative elections on March 11th. The armed group said they will stop all offensive military operations from March 9th as a gesture of respect for the Colombian voters. The ALN also expressed their will to begin a new round of peace talks with the government in the hope of a long-standing peace agreement.
Both sides hope to restart the peace talks and reach a better ceasefire agreement. Their prerequisite is that we should ceasefire first, and we have agreed to that. However, we hope it will not be unilateral.
But 2 weeks to the polls, and there are already concerns about legitimacy. The former mayor of Bogota, who is the favorite in the presidential polls, warned that there's a risk of massive fraud. He is concerned about the decision to not digitize the results of the election, which could undermine its transparency. Plus, there are no safeguards to ensure the process meets international standards.
Aquí tenemos un camino construido.
We have here a path built violating the law that leads us to massive fraud with no way to check or guard against, not by the press, not by political movements, not by the international observers that will come, because the count is no longer traceable.
Caribbean leaders have gathered in Haiti to discuss a wide range of topics from climate change to corruption. At the annual CARICOM summit, the incoming chairman and president of Haiti urged the region to abide by international climate commitments. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago called for the development of a counter-terrorism strategy for the region. And our correspondent in Haiti, Laura Prada, has more details.
During today's CARICOM conference, several countries stated their positions on one main issue affecting their territories, climate change. They debated about different strategies to face weather phenomena and the impact this represents on their economies. Other topics they discussed today were related to cooperation. Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse talked about the necessity of working together and building alliances in order to improve trade and tourism strategies between Caribbean countries.
Time now for a short break. Join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Est-ce qu'il y a des librairies au Nigeria?
Je pense que cela reflète assez mal sur les Français que vous ayez à me poser une telle question. Je suis vraiment honnête avec vous. Parce que, vous savez, on est en 2018 quand même.
Mais en France, on parle très peu, sûrement pas assez, d'un pays comme le Nigeria. Quand on parle du Nigeria, on parle de Boko Haram. Quand on parle du Nigeria, on parle de problèmes de violence, de problèmes de sécurité.
Peru's President Pedro Pablo Kuczynski has arrived in Colombia to take part in the 4th binational cabinet meeting. Kuczynski landed in the coastal city of Cartagena. The meeting will focus on achieving better regional integration. The two sides are also evaluating the impact of the political and economic situation in Venezuela. Plus, they're working towards including Ecuador in this bilateral effort. And Bolivia is bringing its presidential lineup to battle the maritime standoff with Chile. The government announced that the former leaders of the country will be invited to make their case about the border dispute in The Hague.
President Evo Morales announced the invitation to former presidents and foreign ministers, among other personalities, to be part of the Bolivian delegation in the oral argument phase beginning on March 19th.
We want to invite former presidents and ministers of Bolivia, also some social movement leaders and governors, to form a delegation to participate in the oral arguments on Monday, March the 19th, in The Hague.
The president met with the legal team in charge of the Bolivian defense in the lawsuit that started in 2013 before the International Court of Justice, a process that is approaching a resolution.
We continue to review all the legal arguments of our maritime claim, an interesting meeting thanks to the contribution of all the people on the team, the national and international legal team.
The next step in this process has revived the nation's expectation on a possible resolution from the Hague Tribunal. As a result, several social sectors and institutions are making a flag in support of the maritime claim. The flag will be 70 kilometers long and 3 kilometers wide.
The meeting will continue next week. A meeting in Madrid, Spain is expected next week, and the work to get back to the Pacific Ocean is moving forward. In the last days, we have heard a lot of people supporting this cause, especially with the flag that is being made.
In February 1879, Chile militarily occupied and appended 120,000 square kilometers to its territory that connected Bolivia to the Pacific Ocean. Since then, this country is demanding to regain its access to the ocean.
And in Peru, Keiko Fujimori, the daughter of former President Alberto Fujimori, will continue to be investigated for money laundering. The Peruvian justice system has rejected a request to close the case against her and her husband. The court said it will continue the inquiry for a maximum period of 36 months. Keiko is being investigated for campaign contributions allegedly granted by the Brazilian conglomerate Odebrecht, which is mired in a corruption scandal. Keiko leads the Popular Force Party, the biggest political party in Peru. And Guatemala is cracking down on corruption. The Attorney General's office is pushing for the persecution of former President Alvaro Colom. The public ministry wants Colom and his cabinet members to be investigated for an alleged $35 million in kickbacks from the transportation sector. Colom is not the first former president to face corruption charges. His predecessor, Otto Perez, is in prison awaiting trial for corruption charges. In Honduras, migrant organizations predict that the political crisis will lead to an exodus of citizens to other countries. Our correspondent Gilda Silva-Strutti has the details.
Prior to the 26th November elections, records showed that more than 60,000 people left the country every year. The current political crisis will increase these numbers as people can't afford basic living conditions, organizations explained.
We don't have any kind of rights. We should have the right to the land. We don't have any. We should have the right for women when they are pregnant to have their labor in a hospital, even in Mexico. We don't have that right either. Look for yourself. We are supposed to have the right to subsidize housing, to have a meal 3 times a day, and there are people that cannot afford to keep warm and eat properly.
Every day, there are more out-of-business signs in the street, which means high unemployment. For many, this proves the country's economic fragility, which has increased during the last few months.
Sadly, this political instability is going to push more people to leave. People are leaving as they cannot find a job, and this situation is going to continue. Even a change in the government will not guarantee better living conditions for Hondurans.
Despite the hardening of immigration policies, the U.S. is still the main destination for Hondurans in search of a better life.
All the threats from the U.S. cabinet have had some sort of effect and could discourage immigration. However, migration is not going to stop. Migration is always a way out for people who cannot live decently in their own countries.
Juan Orlando Hernandez promised in his 2 political campaigns to create more than 400,000 jobs. However, this target has not been achieved. On the contrary, the number of Hondurans relying on the informal economy has reached almost 3 million people.
In Colombia, the relatives of young people missing and killed during Alvaro Uribe's rule from 2002 to 2010 are still waiting for justice to be served. During the war between the Colombian army and the guerrillas, methods such as false positives were put in place. That's when young people from marginalized areas were passed off as casualties of combat when they were not. Human rights organizations estimate that there are 5,000 cases across the country. Families are still waiting for answers and justice from the Colombian government.
It has been 10 years since this happened. Such a long time. 1 year ago, criminal charges were made, but today, the military attorneys didn't come to the hearing. Juan Sebastián Fajardo gave an incorrect address so he could not be reached. Julia Andrea says she is living in Cartagena. What they are doing is delaying the judicial process.
In Chile, 5 people were arrested for their role in pro-Mapuche demonstrations in Santiago. The rally was aimed to support the Mapuche spiritual leader, Lamachi Lincanyao, and Mapuche political prisoners, who they believe have been illegally detained. Chilean security forces shut down the demonstration with water cannons. In Ecuador, a debate is underway about the impact of community media. Different organizations have come together to look at the preservation of other voices in mass media.
Community media struggle has become in Ecuador an example of community organization and resistance. like its Solidarity Radio located in Quito. Different Ecuadorian cultures work on this community who are fighting to conserve a regional identity.
It is focused on social aid to face rural issues. In the case of this radio, we don't focus on regular news, but on what the communities need.
Community media has created in Ecuador a space where any citizen can express themselves. As one of the main characters of Solidarity Radio, known as the Indian Manuel, who has been created this character for 45 years, preserving Ecuadorian traditions.
I'm grateful to the people, and not with the satisfaction of a job well done, but with the hope of making people laugh for years to come.
Ecuador's social organization, students, and journalists who worried about these issues have been held to discuss the democratization process of the community communication around the country. They recognize the advantage to have a community media in the country.
This is a response to the years of struggle of the marginalized people in Ecuador, of the community communicators.
The struggle for independent media is an ongoing fight to safeguard and improve on the communication law that for now gives community media a voice. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito, Ecuador.
El Salvador is gearing up for elections, which will be held on Sunday. Mayoral candidates have made their last-ditch attempt to lure voters to the polls.
FMLN's candidate, Jacqueline Rivera, says she's ready to win. Her municipal government plan puts safety, cleanliness and order first. She also promises to work with the youth and highlight the city's feminine side.
This party is the one with most female participation. Citizen participation has grown with the FMLN, and it's with us that the participation processes have been developed for real people.
On the other side, mayoral candidate Ernesto Mason, representing the Arena Party, has been questioned for holding meetings with gang members during 2014's elections. Today, a recent digital media article also linked him with the same activity. This was his reaction.
Are you still in touch with gangs and criminal groups?
I'm not answering that.
San Salvador City Hall is where political parties are all trying to get to, because every social group in the country is linked to it, in one way or another.
The country's economic, political, and academic issues are addressed in there. It is the center of every activity. It is the heart of El Salvador. The biggest population live in the capital.
On the 4th of March, 262 mayors will be elected, as well as 84 deputies for the Legislative Assembly. They will represent their voters from 2018 until 2021.
The 20th Habano Festival, featuring Cuban tobacco products, is underway in Havana. The gathering, which recorded $500 million in sales last year, will feature 184 exhibitors from 20 countries. 2,000 people from 70 countries are expected to attend. The authorities have pointed out that Washington's measures against Havana over the last 5 decades have not affected the performance of the Cuban cigar trade, nor did the passage of hurricanes during the recent storm season. And Nicaragua has been promoting biodance since 2006. It's a kind of therapy that many regard as an extremely healthy activity, and it has taken off.
Biodance is a series of exercises and relaxing movements in which you use your voice and listen to a certain kind of music. A group of 13 people in the psychosocial hospital in Managua voluntarily use this as a therapy.
Biodance is a living therapy. It is through experience that we enable change to happen. We get in touch with our creativity, sexuality, transcendence, emotions, and vitality. We enjoy love in a positive way with a lot of tenderness and learning to give and receive. We use our sensuality and creativity as a tool to face our problems.
There are more than 100 patients who receive biodance therapy twice a month. Claudia is one of them. Even though she can explain the changes in her life because of this dance, her doctors say they have noticed results.
She used to be a very difficult patient, very demanding. She didn't follow orders. Now she integrates a lot, is more obedient and more helpful. She takes more care of herself now, and it is evident how she has changed since doing biodance.
Young volunteers are students from different areas of work. They support the process and participate in order to help patients benefit from the therapy.
It is very important to talk about mental health because it affects directly or indirectly the way in which a person thinks. It gives tools to help people to face problems or to increase or reduce their stress.
According to experts, the music used in biodance is not just any kind of music. It is especially comprised and is intended to work deeply on people's emotions.
We'll take another short break, but join us again after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
The RAISE Act ends chain migration and replaces our low-skilled system with a new points-based system for receiving a green card. Securing the border and a wall, ending chain migration, ending chain migration. Chain migration is bringing in many, many people. Often it doesn't work out very well. Those many people are not doing us right.
Media reports in Britain say that women in Syria have been sexually abused by some of the local men working with the international aid agencies based in the country. According to the news reports, a survey entitled Voices from Syria, conducted by the United Nations Population Fund, found that girls were asked for sex in exchange for food or other aid materials. Humanitarian workers reported that so-called local councils would offer women extra bags of grain and lifts home in return for sex, or they would refuse to give any food at all. Responding to the news, the UN Refugee Agency spokesman Andrei Mahachek said the report was fragmented and unsubstantiated, but that the UN had taken action to improve protection against exploitation.
The further monitoring and reporting mechanisms were put in place, such as checking randomly with those who have received aid, how they have received it, when, how, what quantities, etc. Also, specific partners were selected simply to monitor the protection issues in the course of the aid distribution as well.
And humanitarian groups in South Sudan have warned of another deadly famine. This is the result of more than 4 years of civil war that has left half of its people without access to food. According to the aid agencies and the United Nations, more people are set to run out of food in the coming months. An estimated 6.3 million people would face a crisis in the absence of all forms of humanitarian assistance.
This is a dire situation. A record number of people facing food insecurity, while at the same time we have crop production in the country going down every year for the past few years.
Saudi Arabia has replaced its top military brass in a surprise announcement. The head of ground staff and the Air Force have been replaced by younger officers. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman called for reforms after a dismal performance by the military in the Yemen war in the last 3 years. Salman has been taking steps to temper Saudi Arabia's conservative image. In the latest shakeup, he appointed a woman as the Deputy Minister of Labor last year. And last year, he made it legal for Saudi women to drive. Recently, he announced billions of dollars in investment in the entertainment industry. And now let's have a look at some of the other stories making news worldwide.
A young investigative journalist in Slovakia and his girlfriend have been shot dead near the capital city of Bratislava. It is the first such killing in the country and fifth in the European Union in the last 10 years. 27-year-old Jan Kuziak worked on economic crimes and tax frauds linked to people in power. The local police have said his investigative work is most likely the motive behind the double murder. An unknown face in the boxing world, Van Heng Menayothin, a Thai boxer, is close to matching the undefeated 50-fight record held by famous American boxer Floyd Mayweather. He is only one win short of Mayweather's record. His 50th bout is in April against Panama's Leroy Estrada in Thailand. The 32-year-old boxer is nicknamed the Giant Dwarf for his powerful punches and winning streak.
I was a country boy. Boxing was a way to earn money. All my friends did boxing, so we practiced together and gained skills.
Taiwan's annual Lantern Festival has kicked off in the capital, Taipei. Strings of colorful lanterns are on display. As 2018 is the year of dog on the Chinese zodiac, a lot of dog-themed lanterns have been put up to celebrate the spring festivities. The star of the show is the lantern displayed called the Magical Dogs, representing Taiwan's spirit and its cultural heritage. The Lantern Festival marks the end of the Lunar New Year celebrations.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, so for these and many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesyourtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for Tell Us Your English. I am Soyini Gray. Thank you so much for watching.